Have you ever taken a quiet moment at the end of a long, frenetic day and wondered why our modern world seems to race forward without pause? Why do we hear stories of exhausted workers, relentless production schedules, or environmental crises that grow more alarming by the day? Perhaps you have stood in the midst of nature, in a city park or a remote forest, and marveled at its majesty, feeling both drawn to and distant from its rhythms. Such reflections might lead you to question how our society has come to prize unceasing growth and labor, and at the expense of rest and harmony with the earth. Yet, across centuries and cultures, ancient voices have cautioned that unbridled striving, without intervals of genuine rest, can unravel both the human spirit and the natural order. The Book of Jubilees, treasured within the Ethiopian scriptural tradition, is one such voice, persistently calling us back to a sacred principle of balanced living. In a time when burnout is rampant and ecological destruction looms, this ancient text message stands more relevant than ever. The Book of Jubilees reimagines the first chapters of biblical history, paralleling Genesis yet adding commentary, structure, and interpretation. It remains part of the Ethiopian canon, showing how different Christian streams have preserved diverse scriptural writings. Among its key teachings is the emphasis on creation's sanctity, insisting that the world is not an accidental realm to exploit, but a deliberate masterpiece shaped by God. More than that, Jubilees underscores the Sabbath law, reminding believers that the same God who wrought the universe in 6 days chose to rest on the seventh, instructing humanity to follow this pattern. Jubilees 20:7-21 centers on how integral this day of rest is, describing it not merely as an obligation, but as a cosmic principle mirroring the Creator's own pause from labor. The rest of creation, including animals and farmland, also benefits from this cyclical pause. Today, we see signs that ignoring these ancient warnings triggers dire consequences. The World Health Organization notes that overwork kills hundreds of thousands yearly. And our climate crisis likewise reflects relentless exploitation of resources. In Jubilee's worldview, such disregard for rest and stewardship is a violation of divine wisdom, leading to ruin for both humankind and the earth. The text suggests that resting on the seventh day mirrors God's own pattern and conveys moral truth. Creation itself deserves intervals of peace. Humans do not stand above that requirement. We might wonder how an ancient principle of rest fits into our global, digital age. Jubilees resonates with the plight of humans caught in constant business, warning that trying to surpass our need for rest leads to stress, related illness, burnout, and frayed spiritual or family connections. Alongside personal fatigue, the text underscores environmental harm when society never observes rest. In agrarian times, land work non-stop could be depleted. Today, that principle points to how industrial overreach depletes ecosystems, causing climate calamities. Jubilees 2:9 tells how God worked 6 days, then rested, giving humans a model for the sanctity of time. Extending rest beyond humans to animals and land forms a covenant that unites moral duty with ecological stewardship. The synergy between personal well-being and environmental care is clear. Jubilees merges them seamlessly. Honoring a sabbatical cycle protects humans from burnout and the planet from endless exploitation. Burnout and climate change are two faces of the same root problem, refusing to pause. A society that enshrines periodic rest might see farmland lie fallow, reduce industrial operations on a set schedule, and let communities reconnect. Jubilee laws even mandated sabbatical years, freeing slaves and resetting social balances, demonstrating a radical call to justice. Jubilees also highlights the holiness of time. God not only created the universe, but sanctified the seventh day as a sacred interval. In modern capitalism, we often treat time as monetizable. But Jubilees insists 1/7 belongs to rest and worship. This ethic confronts our 2004/7 world, where day and night blur through continuous markets and online platforms. Jubilees gently rebukes that illusion of perpetual motion, reminding us that even the Creator paused. Overwork statistics reveal the human cost of ignoring Sabbath patterns. Corporate structures that reward ceaseless hours degrade mental and physical health, causing burnout. Observing a cycle of rest can act as resistance to a treadmill that devours life and relationships. From an ecological angle, continuous exploitation of nature mirrors the same error, refusing Earth its respite. Whether fossil fuel extraction or non-stop deforestation, the planet pays a steep price for our endless demands. Jubilees frames creation as morally significant, with the land deserving Sabbath. Though ancient, this ethic can inform modern eco-policies, from limiting overtime to capping resource extraction. Some communities try digital Sabbaths, turning off devices to restore well-being. Full literal Sabbath observance may be complicated in modern industries that run 24/7. Still, Jubilee's core principle stands: no one can work indefinitely. Everyone merits a cyclical reprieve, or the system unravels. On a spiritual level, rest also fosters worship and deeper connection to creation. In biblical times, Sabbath included communal worship, shared meals, and heightened awareness of God's handiwork. Modern believers can weave creation care practices into their rest days, uniting reverence for the Creator with stewardship of nature. Some worry about conflicts between the 6-day creation in Jubilees and modern science, but many see these days as symbolic, not literal. The text's deeper point is that life is structured around a pattern of work and rest, and ignoring it is perilous. Our environmental crisis shows how we have hammered resources without pause, crossing planetary boundaries. In Jubilees, violating Sabbath leads to cosmic disorder, paralleling our unchecked carbon emissions, habitat destruction, and resultant climate disruption. Conversely, a sabbatical consciousness could heal both the planet and ourselves. By deliberately curbing exploitative practices, we let creation recover, and we spare our own souls from burnout. In personal life, a Sabbath principle confronts the myth that productivity is our sole value. Jubilees teaches that to rest is to mirror God, shedding the lie that our identity depends on endless output. For those crushed by 21st century demands, it can be radical to pause for community, reflection, or quiet joy. Jubilee laws historically countered social inequalities by freeing slaves or allowing land to recover. Modern parallels might include labor regulations, environmental protections, or rotating industry shutdowns to restore balance. Whether faith-driven or pragmatic, Jubilees validates cyclical rest as fundamental. We live in an era of staggering technological feats, but also mental health crises and ecological meltdowns. The text underscores that ignoring the Sabbath principle leads to disintegration. By embedding rest in our policies and personal rhythms, we can sustain innovation without self-destruction. The Book of Jubilees shows that rest completes work rather than negating it, ensuring a balanced synergy between creativity and renewal. Often overlooked in Western contexts, but preserved in Ethiopian tradition, Jubilees calls us to resist the illusions of unstoppable business. Weekly Sabbath becomes a microcosm for a larger sabbatical ethic that could transform entire systems if taken seriously. Thus, the Book of Jubilees is not a relic but a living voice for our age, reminding us that God built cyclical rest into reality. Burnout and climate breakdown are the results when we push beyond sacred limits. In hearing this message anew, we might choose to let our souls and the earth breathe again. 4,000 years from now, if humanity survives, they might note that we rediscovered ancient principles of cyclical rest just in time. Through the Ethiopian tradition of Jubilees, we saw how the earth yearns for a Sabbath, how technology must submit to ethics, and how our hearts flourish only by intervals of holy repose. May that be our legacy, rather than a tale of unchecked consumption ending in downfall. The Book of Jubilees stands as a blueprint where creation is sacred and rest is reclaimed. If we heed it, we can align with the divine pulse that calls us to labor and then to rest in gratitude for the fragile planet that sustains our days.